Hello, and welcome to the Revenue Marketing Report powered by CaliberMind. Our goal on the RMR is to help marketers move from subject matter experts to strategic business partners. I'm your host, Kamala Thompson, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Daryl Alfonso. Welcome to the show, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Kamala. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Daryl Alfonso. I'm the Global Marketing Operations Manager at Amazon Web Services. A little bit about me. I'm passionate about all things marketing operations and marketing automation. Have been doing it for, close to 15 years now in, organizations of all different sizes, from startups to mid-size and now at a mega enterprise. The focus of my work now is our team owns the marketing technology that really enables thousands of marketers to create digital experiences for our customers. And we try to empower them in any way we can. That most often comes in the form of MarTech and marketing operations. It's a little bit about me, and yeah, thanks for having me.
So, question, do you guys also own the data strategy? Are you involved in analytics?
We partner with that team. I think that one of the things that Amazon and AWS takes really seriously is data science. And they've made the investment in having data engineers and even data scientists and economists really that work every single day on our data strategy. The way we like to think of it is we like to be a strategic partner with them to communicate the overall goals of marketing and to find ways that we can both partner to help make better data-driven decisions, I think, to improve marketing.
Awesome. And I bet you guys provide them a lot of context, business context, that sort of thing, or at least support them in implementing a data collection strategy.
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about this later on, but I think that especially as you progress in your marketing operations career, it becomes so important to be able to communicate with these different stakeholders that may have different backgrounds and different goals than you have. And I think that's super important because as marketers, we are going to have to lean on different people. We're almost like the quarterback, if you will. So we can't do everything. And we shouldn't have to do that. But we need the cooperation and collaboration of a variety of different folks to be able to get our work done and create the best possible experience for our customers. And that's the kind of the way I think about it. So working with different people and different departments is so key for that.
I really like that you said we shouldn't be expected to do everything, because I see a lot of smaller companies now hiring for both marketing automation management and CRM administration. And that is just, those are two big jobs on their own. And it always makes me a little nervous for the person they're hiring, that they're not really setting them up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're just starting up, you might not be able to do anything about that. But as the needs of your business grow, the jobs to be done within each function grow. And you're doing your company and the different platforms you're working with a disservice by not having that specialization, because you're just never going to get to it. I think that that's like the age-old debate around companies not investing in operational talent and operational resources because they're just going to hit a bottleneck. Our marketing automation person, for example, can do 3 things this week, 3 big projects this week, and that's it. So everything else is just going to have to wait. Whereas if you're thinking about operations long-term, if you have a team in place and they're thinking about it in a scalable way, you can run really fast. This is the way I kind of like to think about it. I came up with this example. The go-to-market function, so sales, marketing, and CS, they're like a race car in like a Grand Prix, right? And the operations team are like the pit crew. After a certain amount of cycles, the race car has to stop, has to get the tires changed, has to get the vehicle refueled, and has to get the car tuned up so that it can go fast again. So that's what operations is really doing, is it's enabling the go-to-market function to go to as fast and as efficiently as it can. But if there's no pit crew and if there's no stopping to do those checks, the car is just going to fall apart. You know what I mean? And that's what happens with sales and marketing. You start to get chaos when you don't have that operational piece of it in there.
Right. And if you lean too much on one person because they're good at their job, they're really efficient, it gets to the point where if you're not scaling at a similar rate with the rest of the business, you're almost punishing them for being efficient. And I'd like people to think about that and scale folks a little bit more as the business grows.
Yeah, I think so. And you're also just going to burn people out.
Yeah, there's a really high burnout rate, and I think that's totally avoidable. On the podcast, our goal is to uplevel subject matter experts to strategic business partners, and you had a post recently that just, I think, beautifully lined up marketing operations to uplevel their conversations. And that first point was really getting on the hook for reporting and analytics. I'd love for you to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think the inspiration for my post was I get messages and I often give advice to people struggling with some marketing operations challenges. And that was a recurring theme of, hey, how do I move from order taker, someone that just executes, more over to the realm of strategic partner and strategic advisor. I always recommend that people try to get into a more strategic role and practice that strategic and critical thinking. And then someone asked me that. I thought long and hard about it. The first thing that came to mind was getting on the hook for reporting and analytics. And that means being accountable for as high a level of reports as you can within the business. And if that's a sales and marketing report, that's great. If it's reporting from the CRM, is it's financial reporting, as high as you can, credibly do so. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is that when you become accountable for reports, you automatically get into a more visible position and you get exposed to business leaders and the key business problems. And then you start to just kind of naturally learn more strategic thinking, just almost through osmosis, just being part of those meetings, whether it's an MBR or a QBR or finance meetings with marketing, they start to ask the real hard questions. And that I think it really kind of wakes you up as to what's important. I'm sure we've always had that feeling of working really hard on a project, like you're working on an ebook or something. And then you sit down with leadership and they say, hey, we have to move the needle by 6% this quarter. Otherwise, we're going to have to make layoffs. It really kind of shakes you. Hey, listen, we have to really hone in on what's important to make marketing impact versus what we have been doing, kind of going willy-nilly. So that's an important part of it. The other thing is that naturally, when you're involved in these reporting meetings and when you're delivering those reports, you just naturally get asked, what are we going to do about these problems? What are we going to do about these issues? They just sort of look over and say, what do you know about this? How can we solve this? What do you know of what's happening from the field? And then you start to really kind of position yourself as that consultant or person that is giving advice to leadership and helping influence these large business decisions. I found that to be the case in my career. And that's kind of what I give advice to for people that are really kind of stuck into the putting the puzzle pieces together sort of job as a way to get started.
I totally agree with that. In my own experience, advanced analytics completely changed my career. And a big part of that, like you said, was being part of the bigger picture conversations and getting more context around why people were asking for things. So if I thought something was silly, and then I learned, well, we have enough net new customers. We're really trying to build our ARR and through expansions and better renewal rates. Then it's like, oh, okay, that's why they want marketing to pivot from this strategy to that strategy. It's just super beneficial. Mm-hmm. Your next point was listen and align with executives.
I think that one of the mistakes that operations folks can make, doesn't happen all the time, but I see it again and again, is they sort of create their own roadmap and their own priority list, which is important. However, they don't get alignment and buy-in from the different departments. So from leadership at first, and then from those cross-functional teams, especially sales, especially CS, especially sales ops, lead management, all of those different groups, to get that sort of at least high-level buy-in as to what the marketing operations team is working on. And in the worst cases, some teams may even go completely rogue and they're working on things that might be important operationally, but provide very little business value to what's important to the business today. If you're a company that needs to acquire new net logos really, really quickly, and you have your operations team focusing on, I don't know, cleaning up really old data, which is important. But at this time, at this particular stage, it could be more important to find any loose leads that are just sitting there, or finding ways to get salespeople as efficiently to market as possible, whether that's better experience in the CRM, a better lead handoff. There's so many different kinds of problems, and you want to make sure that you're working on the most important one. And I think that's going to be so critical, because what happens if you don't do that is you have months that go by and leadership asks what you're working on, and you don't really have anything to show for it. You're showing this project that's like this pet project, but not anything that's going to move the needle, and it's not what's important to them. And I think that is such a custom and unique question per business and per team. Like, what's important right now, and how is everybody going to work to get there? And I want to caveat this by saying there was the CEO that I was talking to earlier, and he was like, well, I don't want to know everything that the marketing team or the marketing ops team is working on. I don't want to do that whole micromanagement thing. That's not what I'm saying. Everyone should be empowered to make decisions based on their expertise and based on the scenario that they have to do. I should make the decision on how to best achieve better database health or better operational excellence within MarTech. That's fine. What I'm talking about is the top level alignment on what the goals are for each time period, right? And how each team supports those goals, whether directly or indirectly. So I hope that's coming across. I'm not saying that everyone should know every single thing everybody's working on, but that the top level goals have to be aligned, and that the sort of mental models and the way that you think as an organization needs to be aligned. They say it like singing from the same song sheet. I think I've heard that before, and I like that one. Like, that's the message I like to say.
Yeah, and I've been in organizations where the CMO is absent most of the time. I mean, in meetings, legitimately absent. And they don't always communicate the top level goals. Figuring out a time to almost corner them and say, hey, I need to understand the top level goals so that I can align better. That's really all that's absolutely necessary to make sure that what you're doing is aligning with what everybody else is doing. And part of that's on the CMO. Like, they should be communicating that information down.
Yeah.
One more little point I'd love to talk about is I noticed in my own career that when I found an issue, a cross-functional issue, it was always better to raise that issue with that leader, lower level leader directly, and try to collaborate and find a solution before going to higher executives and saying we have a problem. And that just gives people an opportunity to fix the issue. One, if they don't respond well, then yes, you can escalate it. But I think it's really important in the relationship between sales and marketing in particular to build that trust. What do you think about, have you used that tactic in your own career?
Yeah, I think that's really best practice, especially if you've got different functional experts and specialists that probably have a better idea of how to solve problems, niche or technical problems, than maybe marketing leadership or business leadership does. So I'm definitely for that. Sometimes, hopefully, you don't even have to surface that up to the highest levels. If it's something that you can just hash out between your two departments, like let's say marketing operations and sales operations. What you can really rely on leadership is when you have sort of those hard decisions where, like, let's say process changes or strategic changes, and both teams are sort of arguing fiercely around their side or their point of view, and really you're kind of stuck, right? So then you kind of raise up the question to leaders and have them make the decision there. Whichever way it goes, you would have to support it. I will say that it was just at your earlier point that is more common, where you have a leader that isn't communicating regularly and widely enough what the goals are and how the different departments contribute to that goal. And when that happens, you have people that go off on their own and they just do kind of like random stuff. And, you know, I've been in that situation before. And I think that there's two things. One is that leaders should get really good at over communicating and sort of simplifying what goals are and what the mission is throughout the organization so that people hear it and understand. And the second thing is, hopefully, I think this is getting better now, but leaders have to understand and respect the value that operations brings. Because what I see is sometimes they're just like the last to the party, right? Mm-hmm. They're just sort of like, well, we're going to tell sales what to do. We're going to tell marketing the mission. And then all of a sudden, you know, marketing operations is just sort of getting like the end of it, right? That's completely wrong. They should be included. And I've been saying this, is that if you invest in operations and you use operations in a strategic way, it can be a big differentiator, because a lot of companies don't. They leave operations to the end and they don't have a head count for that person. They don't have a budget for that person. And right now they're finding that they're being left behind. And this is something I'm really, really passionate about. All of a sudden, and you're probably seeing this right now, all of a sudden, there are tons of job openings for marketing operations people. You know, I get messages in my LinkedIn all the time, and they're saying, Daryl, this spot's been open for months. What do I do? And it's because they, as an organization, haven't prioritized operations. They never included it in their initial plan. And now they're realizing, oh crap, we suck because we can't get things done in a reliable and scalable way. We don't have anyone to manage our MarTech. We need help. And guess what? Operations people already have good jobs.
I think that also signals to marketing operations professionals, like if you haven't had that position filled yet and it hasn't been something you've prioritized, it signals to them that you don't really value the position, or you didn't in the past. You might now, but do I know I'm going to get the resources I need and the buy-in I need to do my job, because I've been in positions where I'm not supported and I don't want to do that again. And I think people need to understand that the burnout rate is real and these people are talented and valuable, and they need the resources that are necessary to keep them doing their job well. I mean, they're not just complaining. There's really a ton of work to do. And they're viewed as a cost center, when in reality, sure, it's a cost center, but in reality, there are so many benefits to having good data, to having efficient processes. If you think about the amount of time that you're saving, that's money. That's time that sales could be spending selling. If you think about data, we've seen that companies with advanced analytics, they see huge benefits year over year in revenue growth, in market share, because they understand segmentation and who to target and all of these key things. It's huge. It can really make a really big difference for a business.
Yeah. I mean, great marketing is predicated on having good data. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They don't make the connection. They want to do all this fancy stuff like personalization, dynamic content, and they want to try AI and machine learning, all of these different types of things. It starts with data. And guess what? You have to have the talent, the experts, the subject matter experts to do that. I think that people kind of forget that. I think one last point that I have to on the operations people, the undervaluing of operations, is that I think it's also a two-way street. Right?
Oh, because, sure.
Yeah, we definitely, as marketing operations people, we have to argue and sort of advocate for ourselves, do internal selling and internal advocacy. And then we also have to commit ourselves to being strategic and to being business people and business partners versus just operational people. And I read this article one time, from this marketing ops person. And he was saying, oh, yeah, the first thing that I do when I come to a new marketing ops role is I check all the API connections and make sure that all of those are functioning fine. And then in my mind, I'm like, no, that's something you have to do, but that's not the first thing that you do. It has to be alignment with the goals. It has to be building the relationships with the other teams. And it has to be creating a roadmap that makes sense for you and your team. That's the first things that you should do. Not going through and making sure everything is connected. I mean, it's important, but I think that's one of the reasons why historically we've had a problem. You know what I mean?
Well, and I will say there is always in any position a range of talent, right? So you have your high performers, you have your low performers. Another thing I've noticed is that a lot of people get into marketing operations on accident. They really want to be doing the creative copywriting, content curation, that sort of thing. And they just happen to pick up things pretty quickly. So their boss said, hey, I need you to take over this thing. And it turns into a whole mess. So one, if you don't enjoy marketing operations, life's short. Do the career you love.
Yep.
Life's too short to fight upstream, the whole time and try to make something fit because you fell into it. So do what you love.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I totally agree with you always strive to up-level your conversations and understand the strategy behind it, because that's going to resonate with business leaders a lot more than coming in and first checking the APIs.
Yeah.
Although personally, I do like doing a system review, but in conjunction with that, I'm setting up meetings with all the leaders on a regular basis. I'm stopping by their desks on a regular cadence just to have those conversations and facilitate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So both is good.
Yep. Agreed.
Your last point was get good at translation, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I don't know if translation is the right word. I picked that one because I thought it was a nice way of saying how to communicate the more technical terms and the more things that are day to day for us in operations into practical business impact and practical business sort of terms that leaders would understand and other departments would understand. And that I think is something that has always really helped me, especially coming to Amazon where everything's cross, like you're working with just tons of different teams all the time, and you can never really get things done on your own. And I think that that's important to know. You probably know this as well, but the larger the company, the more you depend on other people. For new marketing ops folks, that's something to keep in mind. You can't, if you want full control over stuff, a lot of times you probably want to go to like maybe a startup or a smaller company where you can kind of exhibit that control. But in the larger and larger it gets, there's no way you can do that. It has to be trying to communicate it in terms that people understand. The way that we do that at Amazon is through what we call narratives or documents. And they're almost really kind of business reports that you write up with the business justification, all the background information, the risks and opportunities, kind of like little mini SWOT analysis that you have to read and circulate. Everyone sits down and reads it and asks questions. And that really kind of forced me to think about my audience and think about what relevant information do they need to know about the issue so that they can contribute or at least understand where we're coming from and how we need their support to help get there. I think all of that to say, people don't know really, often don't know what you're working on and why it's important. And you need to be able to communicate that to them in ways that they understand. The biggest example that I like, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is database health, right? Often leaders don't really know why that's important. Like, who cares if there's duplicates in our system? Who cares if we're missing some data? I don't really think it matters, but it really matters. It matters when it comes to segmentation, when it comes to personalization, when it comes to entering new markets or account-based marketing, for example, where sales and marketing needs as much intelligence as they can to have really great conversations and meaningful conversations with their prospects, wherever that takes place. You can't do that without good data and without good data hygiene. Otherwise, you're really kind of just guessing. And you're really just kind of pointing and shooting in the dark, right? You don't really know what's happening. So that's a way I like to translate like the importance of data hygiene and database health to people that may not understand why it's so important.
And I love that word translate because it is so critical for us to be speaking the same language the rest of the business is speaking. So if we're talking about productivity to a CEO, their expectation is that we're talking about revenue, units moved, those sorts of things, not lead volume. So I think it's really important to understand context and ensure that your terminology is in alignment with other companies. Another one, and this was in the Harvard Business Review, I don't remember the author, of course, but they were talking about marketing throwing around the term ROI, and they were just looking at this very narrow definition of return on ad spend, when really the business calculates it a very different way, and that actually impacts your credibility with finance, the CEO, and other members of the company. So I think the word's perfect.
Yeah. I think that's good. And you know what's nice about having to go through that process of translation and communication is you really develop empathy, I think, for the different groups.
Yes.
And you kind of think like, well, what do they do all day? What do they know about? And what kind of shared goals do we have that can help them to get them on my side? And that I think is also really key, because you can't just go around telling people, hey, we're doing this now. You need to fall in line. I don't think you're going to get very far doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talked a bit with Ruth Stevens about this, and marketing operations, everything they do impacts people down the line. You're at the very front of the buyer journey. What you do is so influential, and the slightest change can have a dramatic impact on people down the line. So I 100% would love to amplify what you just said, because it's so key. It's so key.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed. Agreed. It's such a good feeling too when you do have that alignment. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the fires that we fight and issues that we sort of face on a daily basis, a lot of it comes from misalignment. Is something that I found. They don't understand what we're trying to do, and we don't understand what they're trying to do. That's another reason why teams go rogue or go down rabbit holes a lot of times, is just because of that miscommunication.
Yeah. And I think back to all the friendships I've formed with salespeople and sales management over the years, and how that's benefited my career in the long term. And you really just take the time to get to know people as people, you know? Like you said, empathy is key.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree.
Well, Daryl, thank you so much for being a guest. This has been a fantastic conversation. I think people will get a lot out of it, and I just thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kamala. Thanks for having me.
For folks looking for more information like this, check out calibermind.com.